Hello and welcome once again to Boom 11. The men from Manchester City have triumphed over the men donning red from the United side of Manchester. It is continued dominance that they've shown this year. The treble is on, the domestic double is done. Unfortunately for United, they couldn't get their hands on a domestic double. I have with me a very jubilant City fan, Abel. How good it is to win finally a second FA Cup, but more sweetly against your bitter rivals.
Oh yeah, which is phenomenal, man. I mean, I know I should not get excited. That's why I'm very mellow today because I know the big showdown is 8 days later. It's just another tick in the mark to that glorious treble, which has been achieved by the men in red 22 decades ago. So I know the ultimate goal is on the Champions League. We are now tired of winning the domestic cups. We won the quadruple of domestic in 2017-18, and we've seen that all. But now the ultimate prize, as Pep said 4 weeks ago. We will start thinking about the treble after the Saturday game on June the 3rd. And now the eyes are on the Sunday game on June the 11th. I'm absolutely excited about this victory because it feels even great to defeat United and win an FA Cup because it doesn't happen often, man. So to defeat them and to win an FA Cup and to get a double ticked off, I mean, proper game where you manage the game so well. City did not try to do anything out of the box. They tried to keep it very simple. How you should play and manage a cup final game. We've seen that all from some of the greatest managers. I love Pep Guardiola for that. His adaptability is so good because what he has transpired with the City team over the last couple of years, especially this year, the way in which he knows how to manage the game. He gets 2-1 lead and he has shut down United. He shut down all the attacking lanes, parked the bus, and made sure United had to really get. I know McTominay came very close in the dying moments of the
Yeah,
game to get an equalizer, but then you have to admit at the end of the day, it was all about shutting it down, keeping it compact, and that's how you win cup games. As Jose Mourinho once said, it doesn't matter how many you score. Ultimately, what you need is the hands on the trophy. So if it is 1-0, 2-1, doesn't matter who has the ball. You cut it down. I'm so happy that Pep was able to do it. Pep was able to show that resilience, that adaptability to keep on doing that over a period of time. And that's why I think deserving champions at the end of the day.
oh, absolutely. I mean, you would have to say that Manchester City at this point in time are dominating English football. Not many challenges out there. Arsenal came close. Today, United came close. But then, Abel, you would have to say that today United did play a very resilient brand of football. It wasn't the same United that you blew away at the start of the
Yeah,
season. They've
yeah.
turned themselves into a much more resilient team, and it is never easy going against a team like City. But now, come the next season, you would be slightly worried with what this team can now do, add with added depth as well. Hoping the transfer window comes in, when the transfer window comes
Yeah,
in, rather.
I agree with you totally because the way in which United has improved as a team over the last 6 months or so, since Ronaldo's departure, quite formidably, especially because after that's when they really took shape as a team, started deploying different tactics, started gelling together as a unit, and the way in which they've achieved success to win Carabao Cup, to come to another FA Cup final, and to make it top four, it's incredible because it's not easy to do it in English football at this point of stage because of the number of competitors you have. It is neck throat. It is cutthroat competition. The competition neck up to your neck because all the teams, Brighton, Brentford, Newcastle, add Liverpool. Then talk about teams like you have to talk about Spurs there in that list. These teams have had phenomenal success in the recent past, making top four, and Arsenal. So it is never easy to make it top three, firstly, and top three, top four, and to add to that, to win a Carabao Cup and to make an FA Cup final. I think any United fan will take this as a successful season from what they were last season, and this is a right step at the right direction, I believe, because Eric Ten Hag has really shown what this team can do. There's a lot of courage in the team as well of what they can possibly challenge. They don't give up so easily. They keep fighting until the dying moments
Yeah.
of the game. These are factors. These are good signs for a great team, and I think they are going in the right direction under a phenomenal manager. So they shouldn't be hard done as such because they've lost to possibly the best team in Europe at this point of stage. I mean, they're playing Cap Champions League final
Mhm.
in chase for treble, and they shouldn't be hard done at all because they gave the Champions League finalists a run for the money until the last moments. So considering all these factors, I think they will be very proud of the way in which they've ended up the season.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, let's talk about both the managers, right? Let's start with Pep and the way he built up the team today. it did seem like he wasn't, at all withholding back. And of course, why not? I mean, why would you? Because this is, I think, the closest you can get to a high stakes final right before you play a big
Yeah.
event. And he did play most of the superstars today. How do you think? I mean, what do you reckon about the way he went about things today? Considering very cohesive formation to what you would see. John Stones again playing a very pivotal role in the midfield. Rodri. Today, John Stones was the one who really shut Man City. I mean, Man United down on their breaks whenever they were trying to get that goal on the field, and it became to such a point that the only way you could have scored was a penalty. We'll talk about the penalty, but let's just talk about how Pep has changed things ever since Cancelo has left.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I mean, once again, we have to give credit to what Pep has done with this team. It's been phenomenal, man. Nothing short of great because, uh, it's not easy to integrate a system midway through the season, and which he has been able to use these players in fluidity has been phenomenal. But today, to go with Ortega was a phenomenal choice. I thought he was great. I thought he was wonderful today. The way in which I love watching goalkeepers, and one of the reasons why I loved watching him was the way in which he was turning with his body, especially on the ball. How calm and composed he was, because United were trying to press him with four men up front. There was Sancho, Rashford, Bruno, and Ericsson was trying to press him. And to surpass that press time and time again, to keep that calm head, and to make sure he was playing short balls to Akanji, to John Stones, and to Kyle Walker time and time again, to penetrate through the channels and to put a ball right to Rodri. His body turns, especially when there was a ball, once there was a player at him. So composed, the way in which he was turning with his body. I think he's a phenomenal goalkeeper. I think he's got a great future. I know it's tough to beat Ederson and get the number one spot in the team, but then I love the way how Pep preferred him over someone like Ederson, considering the fact that he started almost every cup game, and it was only fair that he got the final as well, because he's one of the major reasons why you're in the final. And it was fair that you give him the last bit and get a hands-on silverware and put up a man of the match performance. If you ask me personally, he's going to be one of the highest ranked players for me in today's game. Just the way in which he was able to build up attacks from the back. I mean, almost City's every attack came from the back. You started from Ortega. Look at that first goal, right? The long ball from Ortega came to De Bruyne, De Bruyne to Gundogan, then that volley happened in the 12th second of the game. That's what we're talking about. Ortega put up a man of the match performance. Even the last save against McTominay, where he just glided the ball over the top of the bar, I have to admit, this was one of the best performances by a goalkeeper in City colours in a high pressure game like this. And considering it was Ortega's first major final, I give Pep credit for that, for showing that immense trust in that lad, and the way in which he stepped up in a game like this, so composed. That's what I really loved, because goalkeepers, it's not easy, especially when you have players at you, to remain that composed. And considering you're not number one in your team, you often find a number one goalkeeper being the weaker side of the team. But then no, not number two goalkeeper being the weaker side of the team. But today he showed,
Mm.
if you give him enough minutes under the belt, even if it's the biggest of oppositions, he can do a job. And no matter who is on him, he is still so calm headed, and that's what I loved about him. And I have to say, I would talk about Pep's tactics in particular. Uh, Today, once again, I love the way how he used Gundogan to be that attacking outlet up front, just behind Haaland. And even Haaland, you would see his impact, maybe not there in the numbers, but once again, he was a distraction for the defenders. I mean, that now Haaland's reputation
Yeah.
has grown so much that even if he doesn't score, that players tend to be on him, which creates a lot of spaces, especially for a player to make an in behind run and to get into wider spaces as well. Today, there were two to three people on Haaland, especially with Lindelof and Varane being there, even Fred to a large extent being on Haaland and De Bruyne. But that's where Gundogan really came good. There was Gundogan who was free roaming, connecting plays with Bernardo and Grealish time and time again, and really made them. I know he scored two goals, both of them with volleys, nothing to do with the plays, but then especially attacking transitions. You saw how pivotal was Gundogan today in the terms of the way in which he was turning, trying to put the ball in wide outlets, and making sure someone like a Bernardo goes with the ball, even Grealish for that extent. Yeah, I mean you can debate on that particular moment as to why whether it was a penalty or not. I mean, we'll talk about later. But then for me, I thought that was a masterclass from Pep once again on how do you really play cup finals, because the biggest criticism which Pep always had was he did not know how to go about it in a cup final or in a big game. He tends to overthink, but he kept it so simple, kept it so calm that players not look grappled at all, even after conceding the penalty. they knew they can let United have the ball. We'll get the ball back. We'll press them in triggers. We'll take the ball and we'll create that chance. We'll create those chances. We'll put penetrative passes into the box, create as many chances as possible. It could have possibly been a 3-1 win as well because there were so many chances which came City's way.
Yeah, it did. It did. But now let's talk about the manager on the other end as well before we obviously get to the nitty and gritty of the game. Priyanka says that she's heartbroken. I mean, I can totally understand because if you are a City fan, I mean, a United fan today, you would be proud of your team because they did really push City to the brink. And I know they did not come close, you would say, in that. I mean, they did come close, but I think they would still regret the team as a whole that they couldn't get a field goal as such, a very hockey term to use, but then a goal from an open play. But yeah, you would have to say that they did a very good job. But even on the other side, right, as John Walker says, rightly so, Pep Guardiola is an artist, just as we spoke about him. But let's talk about Eric Ten Hag, the once an apprentice of Pep at Bayern Munich. He's built himself a niche now. People believe when he took over this club that it's not going to be easy for him. He was coming off a very good job at Ajax. Some of these players from his Ajax team have become one of the best in the world today. But taking over the United job, a job which has been so much coveted for years and years, taken over by one of the best managers in the business,
Yeah.
but could never really bring it to the fruition that he's now bringing it to. He's genuinely changed the mentality of this team. They are looking like a team that can win, if not this year, at least 2 more years. You'd suddenly think that this United team can challenge or at least make a run for City's money.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's what I mentioned earlier as well. For Eric Ten Hag, I think you give him the right amount of signings for the next season, the right players he wants. Maybe to start out with the goalkeeper because I don't think the guy really fits into that system. All have to admit to it. He's a phenomenal player as a shot stopper, but I think the biggest flaw for United is having the guy at the back because it does not really fit into Eric Ten Hag's system, and that's where you have to make the first major change. Then maybe to bring a couple of additions, especially a striker, and then maybe a midfielder as such, or a right or a left back, a replacement, or right back replacement. I think they're good to go there. I mean, they've got the players and maybe centre backs, couple of centre backs just to replace because you saw once Licha was out, they did look very vulnerable once the partnership
Yeah.
is broken with Varane and Licha. And also CDM. McTominay is good, Fred is good, but you need a decent CDM to give that backup strength to someone like a Casemiro. I mean, there are players who can drop deep, like Ericsson can do a job, but then you need to look at someone to replace Casemiro, as if at all, if he's going to end up getting that red cards or if he's going to end up being injured. But Casemiro doesn't usually get injured, but if the red cards is a major threat with him because he's a very aggressive player, he's a bomber in the middle of the
Yes.
park, and you know that with that kind of a player, there is a chance of him being penalized more often than not. So that's where I personally think United are just 4 to 5 signings away from making a proper team and challenging in all fronts. I know now Champions League is a massive, massive boost for them. If they can make a long Champions League run in the first major season under Erik Ten Hag, I think that's going to give them a lot more boost as well. Because in Champions League, if you can get a couple of victories and knockouts, all of a sudden you're in the semi-final, and that's what you're looking at. And
Yeah.
that would be you're like already successful in terms of creating a team for European fronts. But firstly, it should start with challenging for Premier League. You have to go step by step. It's not easy to win the Champions League straight up because that's the toughest thing to win. Start with Premier League, FA Cup, then the Champions League. That's what you can look at. So Premier League will be the first starting stone to finish up top two, challenge for top two, or maybe give all in. If they get a couple of trophies next season, that's going to be massive. I think United fans should still be patient, not be so uh, impatient in terms of okay, next season is where we have to be all out, trying to win all trophies possible. It doesn't work that way because remember, you're still a club who are in a transition. You're still a club trying to identify the right mix of players who can take the club and lead the generation of these players for the next 10 years. So that's where it's important to stay patient with the club. And just hope whatever they do is always going to be massive, massive positive. But if they don't end up being top 4, that's a downgrade. So it should be top 3, top 2 next season. From there on, step forward.
Absolutely. I mean, they are in a transition for sure. And I mean, it's going to be, I am very keen to see where this project from Pep, not Pep, rather, from Eric Ten Hag goes because I think for so long, United fans have awaited a transition like this. And I think it's finally coming. It's finally coming into its own. And I hope there's also the ownership issue that they're facing, right? And We don't know where that leads as well. So that's one more issue for United to really finish off before this season ends, before the transfer window opens, because you don't want to enter a transfer window with confusion in the ownership. That's probably a horrendous mistake, or rather a horrendous, unfortunate incident if that happens. If Glazer family does not come to an arrangement, it will really hurt Man United when it comes to transfer market. But now let's look at some of the players that have really done a great job today. Let's start with Ilkay Gundogan. Now, Abel, this man has been doing it for you guys at the most clutch possible moments. He did a great job in the Madrid knockout as well. Even though not as as I think much in front of the camera for the clicks, but today he was just brilliant. I mean, the way he converted two goals, both the goals, by the way. I mean, being the skipper of this team and a senior statesman, he really showed the lads, led the way, you would say, isn't it?
Absolutely, but I mean, the hardest decision for City now is whether to let
Yeah.
go of him or to keep him, because he's been the change in all these big games. And whatever is going to happen is going to be so hard for City, because I think he wants a new challenge, and for him, it's only fitting that he wins a treble and then leaves the club, because it's just outstanding play. He's been an outstanding player, and especially this season he stepped up notches as a captain, as a player, and you talk about scoring big games and creating the plays, creating chances. The way in which he's been an impact in the middle of the park, oh my god! I mean, I can't even imagine how it is going to be to get a replacement for Gundogan. I think he's in his prime of his career, and it's only fair that you possibly extend a contract. You know, he deserves a big contract at this point of stage, because it's unfair if you let go of him, convince him, do whatever possible, give him the best possible contract and put him in the club, because I think you shouldn't let go of Gundogan. He's so too good a player. Talk about him. Last season, winning the Premier League on the final day by scoring two, man of the match performance against Real Madrid, scoring two in the FA Cup final, and now Champions League final awaits him. And I'm pretty sure he's not going to disappoint there as well. So I really hope City gives him a massive contract.
I mean, but you know how Pep is, right? I mean, if Pep is like a very chill teacher in a college, is like, you want to sit here, you can sit. You don't want to sit, you can leave. No issues.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's a topper, whether it's a backbencher. Doesn't
City has already
matter.
inquired for his replacement, Kovacic. So
Yeah.
that's City
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they're looking for a cross-league transfer. I mean, Mateo Kovacic is not a bad replacement at all. He's also been a
Yeah.
very clutch player,
Yeah.
especially for Croatia. I mean, not much can be said about Chelsea. The less you say, the better. But he's a very good replacement, I would say. I mean, probably one of the best available in the league, if you have to say. What do you think about John Stones now in the midfield? I know we've spoken about him so many times on this show, but he was an absolute beast today. It is almost as if he was the beast that guarded the doors to Ortega's goal, and he didn't let anyone pass.
Yeah, I mean, he was very good, especially dropping deep and also moving forward. And that adaptability factor of Jonestone's game, which is really unraveled now, is so nice to see. I mean, I did not ever expect John Stones playing the midfield, and now what he's shown, I mean, give credits to Pep once again for identifying that he saw something about him. It's not often you see Pep put a player in wrong position and saying that you go out there, do a job. Pep sees something about the player, then tells him to do a job. So Pep has definitely seen he can do a job, because defensively, especially if Rodri has to go up the field, this guy can drop deep and do that job, because he's a properly trained centre back, and he's a proper centre back as a profile player. And now him going up the field is another value added thing. I did not expect that. I thought he'd be a player who would be a number six, so just to play in the middle of the park, not to go pretty much up the field, which Rodri might do, because Rodri's gameplay, especially in the final third or moving up the field in zone 14s and everything, is so good to see. But now that John Stones is doing that pretty well, John Stones is going up the field, so comfortable on the ball, creating plays, linking up plays with Rodri and Gundo up front, and also De Bruyne on occasions. I mean, that's a new John Stones in itself. So that's why it's so hard to plan against City, because you do not know which player is going to really uh, make those runs up the field, especially with the ball. And his ball progression carry has been very good to watch, because you
Yeah.
need player like a John Stones to carry the ball. And what he's done is Yes, he's also unlocked Rodri's game to a far extent that Rodri has been so much more impactful. The way in which he's winning the second balls, the way in which he's been putting the ball at Rodri's feet, so Rodri can actually release those quick passes, and Gundo can carry the ball from there on. So these small facets which are so important or pivotal in a football game, that's what he sticked. And I give credit to Pep for whatever he's done. He's an artist truly, because he identifies things and really puts a great mixture of things for display.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about this table is the fact that John Stones is not someone who's a very young kid, who's a rookie, who's still figuring out his football. He's someone who's played football for a long time. I mean, he's been part of Man City, some of Man City's biggest victories as well. So when you have a player like that, most often than not, it's very difficult to push someone like him out of the comfort zone because they've played their football. I mean, he's been he's been playing for quite some time. He's already been a player who's played for England in a particular position. Then from there, at the age of 29, to make him shift his game, he's not made him a lot of changes as well. That's what I love about Pep. He's not made a lot of changes. He's not asked Johnson to completely turn into a new player. He's still playing him in a very similar role, just a few tweaks. But then the way he's using John Stones is just impeccable, man. I mean, it's signs of an impeccable manager, someone who knows his
Yeah,
football and his footballers inside and out. It's just incredible to see that.
yeah,
What do you
agree.
reckon now about Man City, Man United, right? Where do you think it's gone wrong for them? One of the things that I will point out, Abel, is I genuinely think that Marcus Rashford is not a player to be playing in the centre forward place. I mean, at the centre forward, he's a great goal scorer, but only when he has that space in the wings. Because the moment you give him that space in the wings, right, he's able to cut in and create chances. But the moment you put him in the center of the field, he sometimes feels like he has nowhere to go, and then he has to either lay the ball off or get thrown on the ground. And I think that's where I genuinely think Man United, as you mentioned, should probably go for a out and out goal scorer, maybe Harry Kane, maybe a Victor
Yeah,
Osimhen.
yeah. I mean, there are high chance they will definitely need a striker, because Ward Burgos as well did not really give them what he is as a striker, because what Ward Burgos' profile was also very similar, not an out and out goal scorer. But now this is where I think United would want a striker ASAP at the start of the next season, because they would want a striker to go out there and do a job, so that Marcus Rashford can start on the left wing, and then someone like Anthony can start on the right hand side, and Bruno can shift into the midfield with the trio of Ericsson. Yeah, Ericsson, Casemiro, and Bruno can start more often than not. I think that's a good trio in the midfield when you have a decent strike force up front. So it all depends on who they sign as a striker. Victor Osimhen is a name which is going around quite a bit. I'm not sure if Napoli are ready to let go of him, and I don't reckon
Yeah,
Napoli is one of the hardest clubs to negotiate with in world football, especially in terms of getting their players. So that is still a skeptical thought of question, but any goal scorer who can do a job up front, they will want to go for him, and that is something which I'm pretty sure they'll do. That's going to be their number one aim for the next season. Get a striker and see how it goes, because once they have a striker in that system, then Marcus Rashford is so much more liberal in terms of his left wing cutting inside. Then with the overlapping left wing or left wing back up there, that'll give them that width and space on the left hand side as well. Then
yeah,
you have someone to support behind the striker and Bruno, and also with someone on the right hand side like Anthony or Jadon Sancho, whoever starts there. That's going to make them a much more potent attacking force. But yeah, first and foremost, they have to sign a striker for that, and they have to sign a good striker. They wouldn't want to sign a striker who's just like for the namesake. A striker who can put in at least 15 to 20 goals a season.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's where I believe Marcus Rashford, when he is playing off somebody, I think it's a lot more easier for him because then he can create spaces, he can run into those spaces, or otherwise he can
Yeah,
even make play. He can be someone
yeah,
who can assist as well. So,
yeah.
but then my question to you is, who would you let go of? Do you let someone like
So
Jadon
World
Sancho
Cost
go
is
off?
possibly leaving. Sancho will remain in the club, but see,
But do
I
you
know
put
for a
someone like
fact that
Sancho on the bench?
yeah, I think Maguire might leave the
Maguire,
club.
I heard, is leaving. Yeah, I heard they're
Yeah,
paying him
Maguire might
10
leave the
million to
club. De
leave.
Gea might leave the club. So there are these players who will leave the
Yeah.
club alongside Wout Weghorst, who is also will definitely leave the club. So these are the players, and McTominay as well is a factor who I see leaving the club. So there are going to be a lot of players who will depart, and they will want to replace these good players with like replacements of midfielder, uh, a striker, a goalkeeper, and possibly a centre back as well. So these are going to be replacements who are going to be lined up for United, as I mentioned earlier. But at the same time, get a striker, identify what he can bring into the club, and also a decent midfielder, maybe a replacement for Casemiro in case of uh, unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah. All right. What do you reckon now? I mean, from here on now, I mean, how much do you think this match is going to give City the confidence and City fans the confidence that they're gonna go out there in the Champions League and play the way that they want to? Because I mean, Inter Milan is not going to be an easy opponent, of course.
Yeah.
They are a team, especially if they get that early sniff with a goal. It's going to be a hella tough, difficult job to go after them because they'll just park the bus. And not many teams in the Champions League or Europe this year have gone past or really pushed that bus out of the way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not easy, but at the same time, I thought this was going to be the tougher challenge for City in comparison with Inter Milan. Not discounting Inter Milan as a team, but Manchester Derby, the pressure is different, the stakes were high, and they're a good team. Manchester, a 4 game unbeaten streak, and they've got some quality players who can definitely do a job single handedly on their day with Bruno, Marcus, Granacho, uh, Casemiro. See, these are mentality monsters, and these guys can really turn the game on its head. So,
Yeah,
in comparison with that, Inter Milan are slightly more inferior. I mean, that's a fact of the matter. And so
of
this is
course.
going to be massive, massive boost. It's going to be like the exact amount of fuel you wanted to add right before that final stage. You are in the pit stop right now, and you have 1 lap to complete, and you are on the lead. So all what you wanted was to put a proper tire, which is like really good, and you can get up and rolling. So you're now in. Now you can absolutely go smoothly and cross the finish line, and yeah, you're in DRS mode as well. So that's what I'm trying to say, right? So it's very easy for Manchester City at this point of stage to look into it at that perspective and say that yeah, it's another final, not so much, but at the same time, it's another new game. You really have to go out there and win. You don't simply stand there and win the trophy. You'll have to go out there and compete and win. And Inter Milan will be giving it their all. And I think it's the biggest game
Of
of their
course.
history after the 2010 final. So they know how big this occasion is as a team. And for players as well, for Lautaro Martinez, an opportunity to be a World Cup winner and a Champions League winner. Even
Yeah,
for Correa, even on the other side for Julian Alvarez. So for us, so it's looking at it from that perspective as well as to what is there up for the grabs and what you can possibly do if you can go out there and do a job. It's not going to be easy at all because remember they have some quality players, especially defensive side of things, who are not going to give you a lot of space, especially when it comes to being on certain players like they have De Vrij, they've got players like Denzel Dumfries. They have someone like Barella who's done a phenomenal job so far this season. Hakan Çalhanoğlu,
true.
and Mkhitaryan are also onto that list. So they look like a very good team who's been peaking at the right time with the Champions League. And that's all what you need to do in cup football, especially in cup finals, where you have to go out there and do a job on that day, no matter who you're facing. Because in 2010 as well, that was a good Bayern Munich team they defeated to win the Champions League. So it's never been easy for any of if you remember 2012 as well. Chelsea went as underdogs in the 2012 final, but what they did was a
Yeah,
phenomenal job by defeating Bayern Munich. So these things tend to happen in finals. It's never easy. You don't underplay anybody. It's a new game, and you play at your absolute best to go out there and defeat them.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it from us for today. Then another victory, another trophy in Pep's big trophy room. I think it's not a cabinet anymore at this point in time. It has to be a room, isn't it? So, but yeah, commiserations to the United fans as well. A tough game, but then I think it's a season to be proud of for them for sure. And next
Yeah,
year they're gonna have the Champions League come back finally at Old Trafford. I think as a
yeah,
football fan, regardless of which shade of Manchester you wear, that's going to be a sight to see. So long
yeah.
it's been for United to have finally a Champions League night, and it's going to be great to see that happen next season. But not to happen, not to be today for them. But however, great game. And before we leave, do make sure you guys do download and play Boomer 11 on whether Apple App Store or Google Play Store. And also, guys, by the way, I mean, I know you guys are football fans here, but we've got something very special on Chennai Super Kings right now up on our YouTube channel. We posted it earlier this day. Ensure, please do go out there and watch because it's just me, Abel, and a third guy who's been on the football podcast before. having just some fun and learning a lot of stories about Chennai Super Kings and the fans and everything else. So just please do go out and show it some love. It's just 11 minutes of your time. I'm sure when you guys are having a tea break or probably a late night dessert, it's something worth the watch. So go ahead and
Absolutely,
check that
guys.
out as well.
Have a good time, all of you. Good night.
Good night, guys. Bro, the live is not ended.
Huh?
The live is not ended.
Usa ended. Well, that's nice. It's fine.